right, so let's get started.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us. You are listening to Two Moms and a Couch podcast. My name is Hanna and
And I am Cristina Chavez.
And we are so excited to be starting this new little venture.
Yay!
Yay! So a little bit about me. I wear a lot of hats. The first one is mom. I've got two kids, still kind of young. I got a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old. And I'm also a lawyer. I am a big fan of side gigs. I've started an inordinate number of side gigs. Some of them I will come back to, some of them I won't. I'm also a full-time attorney. I work in-house for a company in the construction industry. And I'm really looking forward to just chatting about life and different things that Cristina and I had talked about and found in common.
Yeah, no, definitely a little bit about me. We're very similar people, so this all makes complete sense,
Yes.
right?
In the end, you'll figure it out if you stick with us.
But in terms of my background, I'm also a mom. I'm a single mom. My little one is 9, about to be 10 in just a couple short months, which is crazy. I do work full time as a consultant. I work with a number of different companies, but I also am a chronic side hustler as well. So I do a couple of different things on the side. And yeah, well, we're going to talk about and get into all of that here on this podcast, which is going to be amazing. So
I like that word, chronic side hustler.
yes,
that is the great way to describe it.
yes, for what, almost 2 decades now. So hey.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk a little bit about how we met, because we don't normally interact. It's not like we live next door to each other. Our kids don't go to the same game, like sports or after school activities. They no longer go to the same school. So
yeah.
yeah, so we actually met through the PTA of the local community school. You were the outgoing treasurer and I was interested in joining the PTA, and you very wisely talked me out of it.
Yes, guilty, I did do that.
And in the process, so I had submitted a form saying I was interested in being more involved in the PTA. And my son just started, well, actually didn't just start, oh my goodness, it's the end of the school year. He just finished first grade. And I was just trying to get more involved in the local community. We're relatively new to Florida. And so, yeah, so in the course of, you had called me to sort of talk through what the expectations would be for the role of treasurer, which is you were the outgoing treasurer, and sort of what the expectations would be and commitment would be. We're both very big on keeping our commitments and try very hard not to make commitments we can't keep.
Yeah.
And in the course of that conversation, found we had quite a few things in common. And I actually ended up, I think, peppering you with questions about your decision to homeschool your son.
Yeah.
Because we've been looking at whether or not that's an option for us as well, with our kids. And then we decided to meet up for coffee, and in the middle of that conversation realized that we're both sort of into side hustles, and threw out this idea. I was telling you about a coaching business that I am in the process of winding down for the time being, and you mentioned I should start a podcast, and I was like, you know what, let's do it together. And we came up with a name right on the spot.
Yeah, and it was just smooth sailing. Well, kind of smooth sailing from there, right?
Well, we've just started, so we don't know if it's going to be smooth sailing or not.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I think we actually even met like last fall.
Yes,
I think
we
it
did.
was like when we were doing like the whole back to school thing.
Yes, you're right.
And we connected then, we exchanged numbers because of the PTA.
Mm-hmm.
But we just really never connected again, like for the entire school year. So then randomly, yes, because that interest in maybe becoming a treasurer, and I'm like, well, you sure though? It
You're
just
100% right.
It all just makes sense. Listen, after having done that role with working full time, being a single mom, work travel, and all of that, uh, it is more than anyone needs to take on, and more stress than is worth. So
And that's not to say anything against PTAs.
it's
We're
amazing.
not saying anything against PTAs. It's just, it has to
It's
be
an
the right
amazing
decision.
organization. You really just have to have the time for it.
Right,
Um, Otherwise, it's really not fair to the organization or for yourself. So.
right, right. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's how we met. Why don't you tell me a little bit about the work you do as a consultant? Because I'm very interested in how you do.
Well,
You know,
let's see. So,
people talk about consultant and what that means, but I think, not that many know what practically that actually entails.
yeah, no, I think consultant can mean so many different things too. So it's kind of like a word or a role that you'll use like to describe like any work where you're not technically an employee or you go in and give advice or just help out with a project. So as a consultant, I pretty much do that. I go in and I'll do projects that range from anywhere from I don't know, maybe about 6 weeks up to 9 months, maybe a year if I'm willing to commit that long. Um, but I go in and I help with different strategies. Usually it's marketing strategy or go to market strategy that I'm helping companies with because of my experience in analytics and sales in the background. And then sometimes I also help with people strategy. So by people strategy, I mean, getting the best out of your talent, making sure that you're utilizing your talent, the strengths of the people that you have in your organization, they're aligned to the right roles so that you can operate a lot more efficiently and your employees can actually enjoy their jobs, which is really important.
Yeah.
Um, I'm actually planning on transitioning though, because I've worked with big corporations for a long time. And while there's a lot of value in that, my passion is more helping people, and it always has been. Growing up, I wanted to be a teacher or, something along those lines, or a doctor. So people have always been my passion. And my degree is in psychology. I recently started going back to school to finish up my PhD. So I really want to transition more towards helping small business owners and entrepreneurs as opposed to working with these larger corporations because I just feel like that's more aligned with my passion and my purpose. So
That's great. So, okay, so the goal is to do what you're currently doing, but just be able to do it for smaller businesses.
exactly. Yeah. So
Okay.
helping new entrepreneurs or solopreneurs who want to start their business, mostly online or home-based businesses, because that just is the way to go in my opinion.
Yeah.
um but mostly with that and getting them off the ground, whether it's helping with business planning or a strategy, and and that ranges from pricing strategy to revenue and all of that stuff,
Mhm.
some bookkeeping and things like that, just helping them get organized and off the ground is really what
Yeah.
my goal is. I'm super passionate about entrepreneurship and human potential, and I think
Yeah.
that, the more we allow ourselves to do the work that we love and have the flexibility for the people and things that matter to us, the more happiness, can be all around us. So I just want to be a part of that, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
No, I love that. I agree with you. I think one of the things, so I'm very for entrepreneurship as well. Like I think that that is the future for this country, especially like if you look at what's going on right now in our workforce and with developments with AI, I think there's going to be a huge gap. The jobs that people are able to get now aren't all going to be available in 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
You're either going to have entrepreneurship and like service-based businesses, or there's going to be a lot of opportunity in trades, things that actually require a live person, like construction, like plumbing,
Yeah.
things that you actually need a live person to do. But a lot of the stuff that's sort of, I'm going to call fluffy work, because it can be replaced with artificial intelligence, is going to go away. And I will say, this is one of the things that we connected on. I think that our current education system is a little bit broken. Actually, I will say it's a lot broken. Not because of like teachers or parents or anything like that. I just don't think it's set up to help our children succeed in the world that's coming.
Yeah.
Um, like you and I talked about this, and I'm not an expert in this at all. I can't give citations or anything like that, but my understanding is that the history of the education system was built around the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, when the government was trying to get farmers away from farms and into factories, because they needed workers in those factories. And so the whole system was designed to take people who were pretty entrepreneurial, because farmers are entrepreneurial, and shove them into a box and work for someone else.
Right.
It wasn't designed to teach people to think critically, like really think critically and come up with solutions on how to take care of themselves independently. It was, how do you get a job and go through the corporate ladder and like work your way up? I
Yeah.
mean, even the school system, when you look at how the year is set up, those 2 months in the summer or 3 months in the summer, the only reason we have summers off is because that's when farms needed their kids back so that they could harvest.
Yeah.
That's why. There's no other reason why in a society now where most families have both parents, or if you're a single parent, the one parent working full-time all year round, that your kids would not have school for 2 months out of the
Yeah.
year. That doesn't make any sense in this, new world. Well, not new world, but in our current,
In the
system.
current times. Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
no, I completely agree with that. Like, the future is definitely changing. And I think that's also why there's such a huge like shift or like boom in the coaching industry as well.
Mhm.
Because like to that point, exactly, kids are not being taught, well, how do you actually look out for yourself in the real world? Like what
Yeah.
are the life skills that you need to be successful? And that's where coaches come in, right? To really help out with that. So I expect, or I can kind of foresee that coaching will also rise even with the advent of more AI and kind of getting rid of or losing some of the more lower level positions in the corporate world. And I definitely think that if people want to go the corporate route, I think there will be an opportunity, but it's definitely more that higher level thinking. It's doing the
Yes.
analytics, it's being able to, do business intelligence and, help with building AI and troubleshooting when things go wrong. Because at the end of the day, we're going to have some issues with AI because
Mhm.
it was built by humans, right? So it's not going to
Right.
be a perfect system. So, but it's definitely going to be that, higher level, stuff. So I agree. We're seeing just a shift in a way of thinking and how
Yeah.
we need to bring up our children so that they'll be successful when they're adults. Because even in those, 10, 12 short years, things are going to change quite a bit, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I talked about that, and this is one of the other things we connected about, which is we want our children, I know I want my kids not to think that they have only one path, when they to build a life, right? This isn't about getting a job. It's about, how do you build a life that's going to help them be able to make decisions for themselves about what makes them happy and how to do it, how to actually accomplish it, right?
Yeah,
Not just get a
exactly.
job and be stable.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
who
And
knows where
yeah,
the
that,
world's going to be in 10 years. My son's 7. In 10 years, he's going to be 17, getting ready to, become an adult. And
yeah,
yours even sooner, because he's going to be 10. So he's got 7 years. And in that
yeah,
time, we're going to have to give them the tools they need to be successful and to be able to make their way in this world. We'll always be there to support them, of course, but I think I want for my kids, and I've thought a lot about this, which is 30, 40 years ago. Well, not shit, I'm dating myself. Oops, did I just say, did I just curse? um, so when you think back to like World War II era, right? Which is no longer 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
When you think back to the World War II, you had kids who turned 18 that were being drafted and went straight into the military,
Yeah.
right? Like they were making life death decisions at 18.
Yeah.
Since that time, we've seen a softening in like decision making, responsibilities, adultness of our 18, 19, 20-year olds. When back in the day, that's when you started your life. Now we've got a whole group of kids going to college. I mean, even my generation that would go to college to get a degree they can't do anything with, literally cannot do anything with it.
Yeah.
Um, I always like my parents and I always talk about this because for a long time I was a little mad at them because I wanted to be an actress when I was in high school. That's what I wanted to do. They said, look, you want to be an actress, fine, but you do it on your dime. Like, we're not helping with this because that's a ridiculous degree and you're not going to be able to do anything with it. And we're not paying whatever, it was back then for you to become a waitress, basically.
Yeah. Oh.
which best thing they ever did for me because it's easy to think about. It's like, oh, this would be fun, and but not to spend whatever 20 grand a year. But I think I went to public university in California. I think it was like 12 to 15,000 a year on a degree that you can't do anything with,
Yeah.
and without a goal, right? And a lot of the stuff nowadays, there was no internet back then. Back then, I hate to say that, but I graduated from high school in 2001. So like personal computers were still relatively new. Like it was there was still computer labs
Yeah.
in college. There were no cell phones. Facebook didn't exist. Social media didn't exist. And so I completely lost my train of thought when I was thinking about this. I went off on a tangent and forgot what I was saying, but I think I remember now, which is we've seen a softening of our youth, and I don't want that for my son. Like I want for both my kids, my son and my daughter. I'm not as worried about her. She's very much a decision maker,
Yeah.
even at 3. But for both my kids, I want when they turn 18, that they are actually prepared to make decisions about their life in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
if that's
No, I
possible.
definitely agree with that. Like one of my biggest, in my opinion, roles or functions or what's the word that I'm looking for? One of my biggest, I don't
Goals,
priorities, whatever,
priorities, yeah.
some word that I'm looking for, maybe. But one of my biggest, like jobs, I guess, like as a parent is exactly like making sure that my child is ready for life. And I do think that 18 is young, because I know how my life went. And for me it was like, once I was 18, like I had real life things to take care of, like with family and stuff like that. And that was really challenging. So like, for me, I do want to be able to provide that opportunity for my child to have kind of a grace period while he is learning how to make those decisions and operate in the real world, and be able to take a pretty big step back but still be there. But for me it's like, well, early 20s, like I want to know that you are good to go, like, you know what I mean, like you, if I am no longer around, like you can stand on your own 2 feet, you can make decisions for yourself. If there's something that you want to do, you can figure it out.
Yeah,
And you're not needing somebody to hold your hand. And I just try to foster that as much as possible, even with that, with his current age. Like I'm always
yeah,
talking about, well, hey, I'm telling you this or something simple like, why do you need to brush your teeth like in the morning and at night? Well, because I wish I was told that if I take care of my teeth, they would be better for me like when I'm an adult. So I'm teaching you this now so that you learn how to take care of yourself, like now and
Yeah.
into adulthood. Or even just encouraging like to be reflective and think about how people make you feel, how different activities make you feel, so that you can start making those decisions now, and learning like, well, what does make me happy? Because that's the ultimate goal, in my opinion. It's not about finding a job, right? And then just working that job
Yeah.
for 50 years and retiring. It's all about, well, really having some passion and purpose. And if I can teach that to my kid now, then to me that means I'm preparing him for a life of happiness and success. And that's in every area, right? It's
Yeah.
relationships, it's when it's age appropriate, but it's like relationships, it's
Well, but
money, it's career.
relationships isn't just romantic, it's friendships. How you build a
Yeah.
community. You and I were talking about how do you build a community as a mom when you're busy with kids and everything that comes with that.
Yeah, yeah. And we talk about from the friendship perspective. I know I mentioned that, my little one is very selective, very discerning.
Yes, you did.
And I'm like, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I think that that's a real skill to be able to like check
Mhm.
yourself and see if you're really connecting with someone, and if it's a valuable enough connection to continue to invest and drive that connection forward. And communication, I tried to foster that with my little one as well. Like whenever he has had some challenges in the past, like whether it was a bully type of situation, or
Yeah.
even challenges with teachers at school, I always say, like, you have a voice and you have a right to say in a kind and respectful way, this is how this made me feel, and you know can we talk about it?
Yeah.
And even now at the age of 9, like, he's capable of doing that. And I don't think that that's something that traditionally kids are taught to do. It's really taught to fall in line. You're not allowed to have a voice, especially in traditional public school.
Right.
So there are just so many different things that, like, to your point, like, of life skills, that it's so important to think about and try to foster in our youth today.
Right.
Yeah.
That's yeah, there's a lot. You know,
Well,
my when I was growing up, my parents, every time we would get into an argument, my parents would tell me, when you have kids, you'll be able to do it the way you'll be able to raise them the way you want to and fix, the things that you think we did wrong. Um, and I think that that is true. When you become a parent, you see the stuff that your parents did that you like, and then you also see the stuff that you weren't that happy with, and you make the effort to change. And every
yeah.
generation has a new opinion of what should be improved, right? What needs
Yeah.
to be changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it'll just kind of continue to shift. And I mean, nobody knows how to be the perfect parent, because I mean, that just doesn't exist. We're all human
Or
and we are flawed, and we have our trauma and we have our history and all of that. And no matter how hard we try, we're still going to end up projecting some of that stuff onto our kids, which
oh
sucks.
yeah,
But all we can do is the very best that we can do, like, and just see them as individuals, and allow them to nurture their independence and who they are as people, in my opinion.
yeah.
So yeah, but we'll talk about
We'll
all
talk about
sorts of
all of
things
it.
like that, like in
Yes.
other episodes. Like, we're like just getting deep like right away.
We have so much more to talk about. And
Yeah,
eventually, depending on what the audience wants, I'd love to be able to bring on guests and we'll, chat with different people about some of the stuff we're talking about. Because
definitely.
neither
Yeah,
you
like,
know, neither you nor I are experts in any particular thing.
we're just very opinionated,
Yes,
which, I mean,
exactly.
isn't that an expert in general? No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. But
Well,
yeah,
it
like
was,
whether it's like parenting or like homeschool stuff, or
yeah.
like money stuff, or you know,
Well, But that is the role of a
introspection
mom, right?
stuff.
You have to become an expert to a certain extent on anything that you're doing in your family. Well, not just a mom,
Yeah.
a parent.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, it's for all
No,
of us
it's for
parents.
all parents, but I find that like most families still, even though we're transitioning a little bit, most families still take on traditional roles. And so the mom tends to take on the burden or the primary responsibility for becoming the expert, right? Like figuring out, if your kids get hurt or get sick, you're figuring out like how to help them. So you become an expert in some sort of medical care,
Yeah.
depending on who you are, and homeopathic care, like you figure out things to help your child, right?
Yeah.
Schooling, you start to learn like education techniques because you have to help your child do homework and learn and do all that stuff. I mean, every aspect of our kids' lives, we have to become some sort of expert in. Plus, they ask endless questions, and you have to be able to answer them in some way or fashion. And I have learned that I don't know the answer, but we can look it up. It only works for so long.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, that's a whole nother thing in and of itself is like having these deep philosophical conversations like with children, you know
Yeah,
what I mean? And I don't know, I find it very interesting because like if we do allow us, and granted you're right, like we don't know everything, but it's like if we allow ourselves to go down those rabbit holes like with our kids, then that just gives them the ability to start some of that critical
yeah,
thinking, right? And to, be able to form their own opinions and whatnot. So I mean, I do agree, like it's a lot, like we have to, figure out how to be experts and wear a lot of different hats in a lot of different areas if you're, really committed and you want to, create the best, life for your kiddo and help them to be as well-rounded as possible, like you do have to do all that. But I don't know, like I actually would honestly love to hear, and I know that we're, two moms and we have like our, opinions and perceptions and our experiences.
yeah,
But I actually would, because I think that there's also been quite a bit of a rise in stay-at-home dads lately
yes,
too. Like I've seen and heard more and more about that. And um while that didn't quite work for me in my previous situation, I would actually like to learn more about that. Like, so if you are like, a mom and you're the one who's kind of going to work and, dad's staying home, like, I'd love to hear about that. And I don't know, I guess like what drove kind of that decision and what makes sense. Like just having an open and honest conversation with folks, anybody who wants to
yeah.
chat about it.
Well, we'll have plenty of time. We're planning to run this for a while,
Yeah.
and we'll be covering a number of different topics, some of which we may cover over and over because they deserve the time.
Yeah. 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 We'll touch on things as often as we need to, as often as they come up.
Yes, exactly. Well, it's been
Sweet.
fun. I love having these chats with you, and we're gonna end this episode, and we will see everyone on the next one.
Yes, awesome. So good chatting with you, and we will see you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.